The 10,000-mile journey of your morning coffee. Your morning coffee funded a civil war. The beans in your cup right now traveled further than most people will in their entire lives. And the person who grew them? They earn less per day than you just spent on that latte. I'm about to show you something the coffee industry doesn't want you to see. Let's start with a number that should make you uncomfortable. 12.5 million farms. That's how many smallholder coffee farms exist on this planet right now. Most of them are smaller than a city parking lot, and they're all locked in a system designed to keep them powerless. Hit subscribe. You need to see where this goes. This is where your coffee actually begins. Not in a cafe, not even in a roastery. Right here, in a narrow band around Earth's equator called the Coffee Belt, stretching from 25 degrees north to 30 degrees south. Over 40 countries, millions of families. One crop standing between them and poverty. But here's what messed me when I started researching this. What you think of as a coffee bean isn't even a bean. It's a seed. From a fruit. A bright red cherry that has to be picked by hand at exactly the right moment on slopes so steep machines can't reach them. And that's where the first injustice happens. These farmers, doing the hardest, most skilled work in the entire supply chain, they have zero leverage. None. They can't set prices. They can't wait for better offers. Because coffee cherries start rotting within hours of harvest. So they're racing against decomposition. They've got maybe 12 hours to process millions of cherries before everything they've worked for turns to compost. There are two ways to turn a cherry into something shippable. The wet process. Remove the fruit, ferment mucilage, wash, dry, hull. It's cleaner but uses massive amounts of water in regions that can't always spare it. Or the natural process. Dry the whole cherry first, remove everything later. Riskier. One rainstorm can destroy an entire harvest, but it can fetch premium prices if you're lucky. Here's the thing. Every decision at this stage, how to process, when to sell, whether to wait better prices, it's all gambling. Gambling with borrowed money. Because most of these farmers are already in debt to the middlemen who buy from them. The system is rigged before the coffee ever leaves the mountain. Now the coffee enters the real supply chain. Those cherries are now green coffee, dried, hulled seeds sorted by grade. They're loaded into 60-kilogram bags. That's the industry standard. Everything is measured in 60-kilogram bags. It's how they count production the way you and I count cups. And this is where the miles start adding up. Rural roads to collection centers to export facilities to shipping ports. Each handoff adding cost, adding time, adding distance between farmer and consumer. But then I discovered something even more disturbing. Coffee from 40 different countries all toward the same two giants, Brazil and Vietnam. They're the world's largest producers. And here's why that matters. Your single-origin coffee from Ethiopia, the carefully sourced beans from Colombia, there's a good chance they're blended with mass-market commodity coffee from industrial plantations you've never heard of. Comment which supply chain I should investigate next. The coffee gets loaded into shipping containers, standard 20-foot boxes that hold around 275 of those 60-kilogram bags. Then it goes on a boat. For weeks. Let's talk out who actually profits at each stage, because this is where it gets ugly. The farmer who grew your coffee, they get roughly 10% of what you pay at the register. 10%. For doing 90% of the actual work. The exporter takes their cut. The importer takes theirs. The shipping company, the warehouse, the distributor. By the time it reaches a roastery in Seattle or Amsterdam or Tokyo, that coffee has passed through 6 or 7 sets of hands, each one adding margin. Then comes roasting. This is where green beans finally become what you recognize. The roaster heats them to around 400 degrees Fahrenheit, driving off moisture, triggering chemical reactions that create aroma and flavor. The beans crack, expand, darken. Roasting is the shortest step in the entire supply chain, minutes compared to anything else. But it's where most of the brand value gets created. Because now it's not just coffee, it's their coffee, with their logo, their story. So let's add up that journey. Mountain farm to rural road, 50 miles. Rural road to export port, 200 miles. Port to port across an ocean, 8,000 miles. Import port to roaster, 500 miles. Roaster to distribution centers to cafes to your kitchen, another 1,000 miles. 10,000 miles, give or take, for something that spoils the moment you grind it. But distance isn't even the worst part. Water usage at processing facilities in drought-prone regions, pesticides running off into rivers, deforestation to plant more coffee as demand increases. The carbon footprint of shipping beans across oceans when they could be grown closer to where they're consumed. Except they can't, because coffee needs specific elevation and climate conditions. And here's the paradox. Climate change is destroying the very regions where coffee grows best. Rising temperatures are pushing suitable growing zones up mountains that eventually run out of mountain. Within 30 years, half of current coffee land might be unusable. This isn't just about ETs, it's about your actual coffee. As climate zones shift and smallholder farms fail, production consolidates into industrial operations that prioritize yield over quality. That complex, nuanced cup you love? It exists because of biodiversity, because of varied microclimates, because someone's family has been perfecting their process for generations. When they disappear, coffee doesn't disappear. It just becomes worse, more uniform, more bitter. The coffee industry's future looks like the beer industry's present. A few giant brands dominating increasingly generic products. So what do you actually do with this information? First, understand that fair trade and similar certifications help, but they're not magic. They guarantee minimum prices, but those minimums are often still below the cost of sustainable production. Look for direct trade relationships. Roasters who can tell you exactly which farm your coffee came from. Second, pay more. I know that's not what you want to hear, but a $15 bag of coffee probably means the farmer got 15 cents per pound. A $25 bag from a direct trade roaster might mean they got $1 per pound. Math is math. Third, waste less. If coffee traveled 10,000 miles to reach you, maybe don't let half the bag go stale in your cupboard. Brew it right, drink it fresh, respect the distance. Your morning coffee didn't fund a civil war. That was Hook. But it did fund a system that keeps millions of people in cycles of debt and poverty while delivering enormous profits to everyone except the person who actually grew the thing you're drinking. And now you know. You can't unknow it, but you can change what happens next. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Follow the journey, understand the cost, change the system.